I am thinking of starting a family even though I am 21. Apart from the financial part, what is stopping you? Story 1. I'm quite committed to not having children, but as my older family is dying off, I do feel a loneliness that I suspect is unique to an absence of family. I'm starting to believe that, absent dysfunction, there is a unique peace and security that can only be provided by family. Story 2. Having kids is the closest thing to having a second childhood you can ever experience, and you can try to make it as awesome as possible for them. Their joy and contentment in the simplest things is the best thing in the world to behold. It is the only thing worth a damn I have ever done. Story 3. I have 5-year-old twins, and being their father is the best thing that happened to me. My life wasn't boring before them. I lived with my rock band in a huge old house for 6 years and even went on tour 4 or 5 times. It was an amazing period of my life, which I will cherish forever. Would I like to be relaxed in a van, on a road in the middle of nowhere, ready to play live another night? Sure. Would I give up going for a walk with my twins and see them get absolutely excited over a caterpillar? No, this is me now, I'm all in. Story 4. Dad here. I love my kids, but I wish someone had sat me down beforehand and said that having young children can be so overstimulating. I'm currently hiding in the bathroom, and my 2-year-old is using every trick in the book to get attention from under the door. Send help. Story 5. Cons. I will not have a chance to be what my parents were or are to me. I have an apparently rare relationship where I actually like my parents and often go hang out with my dad. Story 6. I'm child-free and love my life. But here are some things I miss out on. Parent friends. Parents have a whole new round of school friends that child-free people don't get. It's hard making friends as an adult, and that's a good way in. Holiday traditions. We still celebrate everything, but it's easier to slack a little bit here and a little bit there every year. That being said, it's nice to be able to phone it in during hard times, like when my dad died. Someone to spend holidays with when everyone in my life is gone one day. Although this is not a guarantee at all, plenty of kids dislike their parents, can't travel, or spend holidays with their spouse's family. So a gray area, but I think of it. Being able to teach things my dad taught me or know my knowledge can be passed on. Again, though, this is just a fantasy since there is no guarantee a random human will like to cook, garden, or make art. The list of benefits is much longer than this. Story 7. Having kids made me a much better person than I ever would have been otherwise. If not for them, I would never have questioned my toxic beliefs from childhood. I was unhappy, but I carried on. I loved them so much, I never wanted them to feel the way I did. So I had to figure out how to prevent that. I ended up healing my own shame and trauma, all because of them. Story 8. This is highly specific. The only real con is if you want to have kids and don't. But there are some other things that can happen that could be considered negative. Friend circle can change. If they start having kids, goals and priorities change. Not having kids can leave you excluded or frustrated. Current trends. A lot of people will stagnate in terms of popular culture. Having kids keeps it fresh. There's a lot of music I wouldn't have considered if my kid wasn't listening to it. Workplace pressure. Unfairly, non-parents have a tendency to be tasked with things because they don't have kids. Nothing earth-shattering, and some of this might not apply. Since you want to have a family and are looking to get advice, you may want to examine why you want a family and then ask if that motivation is sound on parenting forums. You'll get way more helpful advice in figuring out what's best for you. Story 9. First of all, my mom was a hospice nurse, and she said people without kids often had other family or friends who were there for them. Some had kids that never showed up at all, just based on my relationship with my mom before she passed. I wish I had had kids because our friendship and mutual love and support made my life really rich. Then she died, and I have no connection like that to anyone, not even my spouse. I think if I had had a child and been a good parent like my mom, I would be enjoying that now. But I didn't have kids because of a long line of mental illness from both sides that I was saddled with. It was awful. Since age 8, suicidal thoughts all day, every day. My niece from one brother and my nephew from another both have it, and it is heartbreaking as an adult to see it in a child and know that he will have no idea how to cope with this until well into his 30s. My niece is basically a non-functioning adult. It's really hard on their parents, but I'm angry that they even had kids because of this. I know what it's like to live your whole life in a battle. I'm 68 and still fighting. I worked, I was successful, I can make friends. But most people can't, and that's why you shouldn't have a child and expect that all your mental struggles won't touch them. It will. Story 10, 38-year-old male, 35-year-old female, child-free. The only downside we have experienced is that you end up losing touch with your friends from your adolescent years and 20s. Your schedules and interests diverge, and eventually you don't have a lot in common anymore. But you end up making new friends who are in a similar situation. There are just a lot fewer of those as the years go by. But then, once you get into your 40s and 50s, those people with kids start to get their adult lives back and things get better again. Story 11. I'm in my mid-40s. I will tell you the downside to not having kids from my experience. Kids can grow up to be helpful with household chores, an extra pair of hands for working on projects, more playmates for games, and gaining a different perspective from your own. Not having children escapes the responsibility of raising a human, but robs you of ever being called mommy or daddy. That may not matter to some people, but it's also the end of your posterity. You will never be a grandparent. You will be reliant on strangers as you get older and need assistance. There's nobody to teach the lessons you have learned in your life to. So all that is wasted when you're gone. You will be excluded from fun activities and areas where children are. No playgrounds, no kiddie rides at theme parks, no birthday parties or socializing with other parents. Most of our friends are older empty nesters. And there is the never-ending barrage of reassurance that we can adopt since we can't have kids. In our 40s, it's a little late. Not to mention adopting is far more expensive than having a baby. Like 5 times as expensive. I have a wonderful wife, but when she is gone, I will be all alone. I won't have anyone else. And if I die first, then she'll be alone. I don't think most people really understand how different life goes when you don't have children. It's got lots of pluses, but there is also a downside. One of the hardest things is marking the passing of time. There's no first day of school, no graduation, no first date, no sports games, no recitals, no first job, no first grandchild, no way to mark how old you are getting. You always feel like you're in your 20s, but more gray hairs and more aches and pains. Even with extended family, it's not constant that you see other kids grow up. It's here and there. I hope this helps give some perspective to you. Story 12. I'm a father of 6. I always knew I wanted to be a dad. Never a doubt where that was concerned. In my early 20s, I had my first child because I wanted to do everything differently than my own parents. I saw their shortcomings where my brother and I were concerned. I found a partner who had a similar childhood. We decided to have a big family and do everything we didn't get. Our 6 kids have easily the coolest childhood among their friends, in my opinion. We have the most fun together. That sounds really silly, but it matters. We take on every challenge as a family. We play games, we garden, we kick a soccer ball or play basketball. We draw together. We get into water balloon fights. We jump on the trampoline, have fire nights, and roast s'mores. Plus, you're 21. Your prefrontal cortex is finished forming. That is wrapped up around 25. Wait until then. You will be a better man, a better father, and a better husband. You should wait. It's clearly your choice. But I would suggest you wait until you're finished growing and until you know you have the right partner. Having the right person by your side, that's going to make all the difference in the world. Story 13. It only sucks in old age, 60 plus. But the warning is that having kids doesn't necessarily mean they will have a relationship with you when you are old. It's a toss-up. A lot of old people, mostly men, have a strained relationship with their kids. Story 14. I think the biggest downside is the risk of being very socially isolated and lonely in the second half of your life, your 50s, 60s, 70s, etc., especially after you retire. If you don't have children, you probably won't have a lot of close family connections when you get older, unless you have a robust extended family you are close to. Your parents won't be around anymore. If you have no children, hopefully you have a wife or husband at least. Obviously, you won't have grandchildren either. Hopefully, you are very involved in your community in some way so you get that social connection and have relationships with people who care about you. If you don't have these things, you may be very socially isolated as an older adult. I don't have children. I'm now almost middle-aged, and this is what scares me the most. Story 15. Choosing not to have kids reduces your dating pool by about 95%. Ask me how I know. More so for young people. Young people mostly either do not know if they want kids, or they think they want kids. The number of actively child-free people under 35, who specifically list no kids on dating apps, is pretty low. Sorting through profiles with only that one requirement clearly listed and ignoring everything else, you will run out of dating profiles within 50 to 100 miles very quickly. Story 16. It has been shown that as you age, you spend less time with your friends and relatives. If you do not have your own family, it will not stop the others around you from doing the same. You will just be alone a lot more. A lot of people like to pretend that being by themselves is totally fine, but we know that loneliness is one of the most mentally devastating things a person can experience. I think if you have a family, it will give you a reason to keep living and have a better, healthier life because you want to be present for them. I have seen some unmarried guys in their middle years. They live for their job and relax by drinking like they are still in college. Everyone bases their self-worth on something. You might as well make it something positive. Story 17. Everyone around me is having children, or so it has seemed for a very long time. My wife and I tried for many, many years. It turns out an injury my wife had when she was younger hasn't helped the circumstance. Sometimes she blamed herself, but eventually my constant love, support, and appreciation of her helped her to move through it. It was not her fault. Life happens. My wife is my world, my rock, my inspiration, and I've never wanted anyone else in my life but her. But, on occasion, the idea of having a child or children that had her eyes, her personality, or characteristics, or any of that, I wanted to see the love of my life reflected in a new face that came from our love. Protect them, teach them, guide them, and see them make their way in life on their own. Add to that, sometimes sitting at the dining table together, or waiting for my wife to come home from work or vice versa, though now I'm semi-retired. Sometimes, just sometimes, it feels like someone is missing from our household. Once in a while, we've commented to each other on that. We've talked about adoption, but it didn't work out. So we've said to each other, whichever one of us goes first, since we don't have children, just do your best not to be sad. Because both of us would want the other to remember us and our love, and enjoy life as much as they can, before they meet up with us again, wherever and whatever comes next. Such is what's in store for us. So the simple answer is, sometimes we feel an emptiness of someone that perhaps should be there with us, but isn't, and it's not always a great feeling. But we love each other and that's enough. It has to be. Story 18. I honestly cannot explain it. Kids are stressful. They make me the most angry, scared, anxious, and exhausted that I have ever been in my life. Every day is a challenge. If anyone else treated me the way that toddlers or teenagers do, they would be out of my life. But with all that said, they bring me more joy, love, and pride than anything else. I would endure any torture or pain for them. They are without a doubt my favorite people. Story 19. I don't have kids, but when I see families together, there is a noticeable life force that emanates from kids which can be felt in the entire family unit. I think it's just an experience that gives a type of pleasure to most people who can accept the gift that children can be. I think a lot of people don't appreciate it, though, and the downsides may outweigh the upsides. Story 20. As someone who doesn't want kids, the one thing that I sometimes feel is I would love to raise a kid right. I see so many poor parenting decisions, kids gone astray. If I did it, I would do it exceptionally well. At least in my biased opinion anyway. I just have no desire to. Story 21. You and your gene line are at an end. But if you don't want to be an evolutionary dead end, wait. As far as 21, wait until you finish school and find yourself more honestly. Your brain continues to develop. Literally, your brain, part of the prefrontal cortex, is still developing until your mid-20s. Also, relationship-wise, assuming you want a relationship with the mother, People undergo a lot of change in their 20s. The person you are and the mother will be very different in a few years. Story 22. I welcomed my first child in December. I can already tell the smiles and giggles are the sweetest sounds and smiles I've ever witnessed. A disadvantage of not having children is not experiencing the love of being a parent. Looking at your own child and falling in love with someone with your entire being. Being a parent, I understand now what it's about. I'm still very new to it, but I am excited for the journey. Story 23. I would say there are no disadvantages to not having children. There are definitely disadvantages to having children. I find the advantages outweigh those disadvantages. Children can be challenging and drive you almost to the edge, but then they'll give you a hug, and nothing is better. They do something silly, they'll say something funny, and it can just have a profound effect on you. It can be very hard work, but for me, it's absolutely worth it all.